citizen to see you, Mr. Mayor.
Citizen? They're not allowed in here. This is public property.
Power does what it wants. Power does what it wants. Power does what it wants.
Hey guys, Rogue Nation here with you today, and we're going to get into a little bit of what's going to be taking place in this video. This is definitely a long video. It's, one that I believe everyone should watch. It details this gentleman's interactions here with Columbia County, Lake City, Florida, and the culmination of it is this incident right here, where, as you can see, the officer has his hand there. He's got money in his hand. That was just given to him by this gentleman in the truck. So there's no way that I can condense this video of this interview with Mr. Sneed and you still get the full picture of exactly what's going on, right? What kind of retaliation this man is facing, and just, tomfoolery and thievery, which, again, this happens in every county across America. It's happening to somebody. There's some public official or some public employee that doesn't like somebody else. Maybe it's an ex or whatever have you, and they use the government in retaliation. Now, that's not exactly what happened here. There doesn't have an ex that works for the government, but when you question the government, when you complain about the government, when you actually take steps to enforce your rights, then retaliation is not far behind. So we'll definitely get into this and get right to the video so you guys can watch. We'll have some of the body camera footage, we'll have some of the documents, but the majority is going to be the interview with Mr. Derek Sneed. So, alright guys, tell me what you think in the comments section below. Let me know if Storytime Sunday is something that you guys want to keep seeing, because I do have a lot of other stories lined up that detail this exact kind of behavior. And I feel this is something that needs to be put out into the public. The more the merrier. I would like everybody to share my Storytime Sunday videos. You got permission to share and mirror and copy and do whatever you'd like with it, because this is the kind of information that we need to get out. So without further ado, guys, let's get into the video.
You can go ahead and start whenever you're ready. You just introduce yourself however you'd like, and we'll go through the story.
Do I need to look at a specific camera?
No, wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay.
I just
Or
have this angle on you and that angle's on both of you, so he'll, in post-editing, like...
So I can talk to him directly?
Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah.
No, cool.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So my name's Derek Sneed. I moved to Columbia County probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and first incident that happened was I was with, had just moved to Columbia County, and my girlfriend got into a fender bender. It was car rolled back into her, and she called me from McDonald's, I'm sorry, Burger King, and I told her I'd be right up. And when I got up there, this officer, Ariel Peterson, she was going off on my girlfriend, and I'm standing back, and I'm like, don't talk to her like that. I'm like, Lori, name, address, insurance, driver's license, that's it. None of that other stuff that she's asking you. And we went back and forth on that, and she keeps saying, was I part of the accident and whatnot. And when her backup arrived, first thing she did, she told him to put me in cuffs, put me in the back of the car, charged me with resisting arrest, even though I was responding to a conversation. It wasn't a one-way conversation, and attaching a tag supposedly to my van that I drove up there. And that wasn't the case either. So that was my first experience in Columbia County with Ariel Peterson. And this lady, she had so much like anger. I don't think it was just anger at my girlfriend. I think it was just, she was having a really bad day. And so I decided to Google her and see if I, if there was something that made her like that, or, if she's had other complaints. And I found a video where her and her partner, they pulled over a truck, and partner jumps in the back of the pickup truck, and she's standing there, so at the rear of the truck, and her body camera, the car camera caught all of this. Well, it didn't get picked up until the newspaper saw it, but she said her foot got run over. Her foot never got run over. The truck tire never touched her foot. I mean, and when they did the article about her, you could see it was probably about 2 feet that she was from the vehicle. And so it never touched her at all. And when the Columbia County, the Lake City Police Department was interviewed about that, they called it an adrenaline bump, that she thought her foot got run over. And I'm just dumbfounded by that.
Now, did they shoot the person driving, or?
No, they didn't shoot the person driving, but the guy that jumped in the back of the truck. It was kind of like when the story first came out, nobody had seen what happened with her foot, or didn't happen with her foot. But it was like he was kind of like a little bit of a hero for jumping in, with the chase and all of that. But he ended up, with the police chief Aragatha Gilmore. I screwed that first name up. Chief Gilmore at the time, and the guy that jumped in the back of the truck was at the hospital. So it's kind of like their photo op of, hero in action.
Right.
And on the flip side, which not a lot of people knew or even know today, she turned in her resignation. Ariel Peterson turned in her resignation over that, and then recanted it, as I was reading in her police personnel file. And I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with these people? She should have resigned. She flat out lied.
Is she still with the department today?
She's not with them. She's actually in Pensacola in a non-sworn position with the corrections facility that's out there. But after that particular incident, and going through her police report, I had another occasion to have to deal with her, and this time I was at a restaurant, my door legitimately flew open, and it was the windiest day of the year. I had to give that to the state attorney, but flew open, door dinged somebody's car, and the police were called, and I gave my information that I had to give to the other party. I called the police department to give them the information, and I asked them specifically, can you send somebody else other than Ariel Peterson? And they said, no, she's the one responding. I said, well, you have all of my information. Feel free to give me a call, but I'm not going to wait around to talk to her, because I didn't have to. And I was trying to thwart off a confrontation that I know would have happened, and it would have ended bad for me, because I don't have that shiny shield. So she calls me on the phone, and she's like, well, who is driving the vehicle? I want you to come back here. And I'm like, none of that's relevant. There was no crime committed. And she's like, well, I'm just going to charge you with criminal mischief and damage to property under $200. And she she filed those 2 charges. I didn't know then, but within a week, I called, picked up the phone to see, do you have any police reports for Derek Sneed? Sure as can be, she filed 2 charges to try to get me arrested for that. And because I had seen that and the state attorney had not acted on it yet, they only took it as an intake, I kind of went and did whatever I could to say, yeah, I did it. I made all the appropriate calls that are in the statute. It was the windiest day of the year, and the other person just got irate over a door ding. And this is where we're at. 2 charges against me. Well, they never pursued them. It's not that they got null prost, it's just that, basically
They just didn't even pick them up.
Exactly. And so that was another incident with, Ariel Peterson. One of the times that I was arrested and put in Columbia County Sheriff's Detention Center, I'm ready to get out, bonds paid, ready to do my due diligence, and it's like, well, what's taking so long? Ariel Peterson shows up there at the Columbia County Sheriff's jail. A Lake City cop shows up there to talk to me, and she's like, I'm trespassing you from X, Y, and Z property. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, you can't trespass me, it's my place. And she's like, well, I got a complaint and you're trespassed. And she said in the police report that I refused to sign that trespassing notice. I went above and beyond again to try to get with the sheriff, video camera footage from the jail that would show, that she's not telling the truth. I went to the Lake City Police Department and tried to get her body camera video because the police report said body camera on. What did I get? Nothing. And during the discovery phase of my civil suit right now, the body camera footage is in there. And I'm shaking my head like that just proves one more lie from her. Mm-hmm. And I forget how long afterwards it was, but I was doing research on Columbia County and just what I would just call some of the silliness there. I saw a video of this guy getting kicked out of the post office, and I'm like, that's the same post office of why I don't get my mail there anymore, and the same guy. So, I'm looking into that, and then I run across Sylvester's page, and, some of the things that were getting posted on there, and I'm just like...
Hold on for 1 second. For you folks at home, that was my video of me getting kicked out of the post office, and I'll link that down below for you. All right, sorry, go ahead.
No problem. So part of this is your fault, but I fully agree with, rights get trampled, and it's really hard to get someone to defend you unless, it's in their best interest monetarily.
Right.
And it's got to have some money behind it, not just a few $100 or a few $1,000. But anyway, between that and Sylvester's page, I learned a little bit about the city council meetings and the county commissioner meetings, and I decided to go speak. I'm not a public speaker. I've gotten a little bit better, but first time public speaking in front of the crowd, and I got up there to talk about my incidents up to that point with Ariel Peterson. And I called her Officer Bump in that little speech that I gave, but I documented each time that I had an interaction with her, that she turned in her resignation and then recanted it, that she tried to put charges against me and say that I would not sign the trespass warning, and I even gave like a little 3 steps back about how far she was, podium-wise, 3 steps back from the truck, that just flat out lied, and nothing happened to her. She's still, at that point, she was still on the job. I then decided, after speaking about that, I wanted to get, this was about 2 weeks after that, I wanted to get her body camera footage and the car camera footage from her. And when I called to get that, I was told she's on leave, she's turned in her resignation, and her 2 weeks notice was taken as vacation time. And guess what happened? She takes the car home, she takes her phone home, her computer home, and all of that. And when all of that comes back, and when she comes back, the stuff I asked for, didn't get any of it. And I said to him via email, when you give your notice this day and age in bigger companies, that's your last day. They don't want you to possibly do something vindictive or anything like that, or with the 2 weeks or whatever. They'll just pay it and say, thank you. With her, I just couldn't believe the how much it's almost like that they were defending. And I don't know if they were actually, and I think they were actually defending her, not knowing what I was requesting as far as what would have been on the video.
Right.
But that she just got rid of it. And, again, the police report says it's on video. So that was kind of just my first kind of taste of, Columbia County and that specific officer. Since then I've had other incidents where I spoke at the county commissioners meeting for the need for a civil oversight board for the sheriff's department. Right. So I spoke at that, for that need, and pretty much ended up getting kicked out of there because at the end, when Mark Hunter got up there to speak, after I said about they hide behind, I called it sovereign immunity, I believe, and it was the wrong immunity word, but he gets up there and says they don't hide behind that, and there's no reason for a civilian oversight board because he can take care of it himself, or in-house. And I started in a back and forth with him, and ended up getting tossed out of there.
All right. Well, let's bring up today what we're here today, the issue that we're here today, the video that you showed me, and how all that came about. So that way, because that's what we want to focus on,
sure,
right, for the mediation. So yeah, let's get into that issue, so people at home can hear what we're here about today, and some of the videos and documents and stuff that we're going to see associated with this story is dealing with this issue right here now, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of that issue today. You said you got a call. Is that where it started, or?
Yeah, I got a call from Hall's Well and Pump saying that I owed them almost $4,000, and I'm like,
And that was $4,000 for what?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was $4,000 for a property that I had just bought, and it was to replace the old well that was there. So it was for pump, a tank, the wiring, and some like 200 feet of pipe.
Okay.
So that was the job. I was there towards the end. I took pictures. I try to learn something, especially if I'm paying that kind of dollar amount, about asking some questions about, what is that? Oh, a pressure switch, what's it do? Well, I know that now. Paid the guy, thought that was the end of it. And about a month later, I get a call from the owner saying, I owe him all this money. And I'm like, no, I paid your employee that when we were there. Just like I had done every other time I had them do well work for me.
And they gave you a receipt, obviously, at the end, right?
No.
When you paid them?
They did not give me a receipt because it was paid in cash. And I had not gotten receipts in the past before. It was just kind of like the normal course of business that here's your cash, you owe $34.50, here's the cash for it, that's it. So when I got the well replaced, I definitely got a receipt because this was turning into a very bad learning experience. But anyway, I decided to change the deed on my property so that now it's under a different entity. So even if they decided to come get it, it's got a new owner. You know, I can't come and take your well the day after I buy your, property, and you're now the new owner. You can't do that.
Right.
Anyway, that's exactly what happened. And I was called by my tenant, who was telling me, cops out there, all's well and pump is out there. And I started calling the sheriff's department to try to get a supervisor or sergeant on duty to say, what the heck's going on? It's my property. Why are you guys out there taking this? And started to get the runaround. And one of the guys called him Scooter. His name's turned out to be Howard Bilthius. He told Aaron Swears to go out there and monitor the situation. If anything happened, to keep the peace. If there was any complaints, anything like that, to just,
And who are these people that you just mentioned?
This would be two sheriff's officers or
Okay.
sheriff's deputies. So Howard has been there a lot longer, and I guess the chain of command is Aaron works below Howard. He was the one that was asked to go out there and basically facilitate the theft of my well with my tenant standing there.
Told me he gave them a cease and desist letter.
Okay. I don't know. They reached out to the sheriff's office. They have an invoice saying that he has not paid for the pump and the well and all that kind of stuff. So they're essentially repoing it.
But it's attached to the house. That's against the law, man.
Call my lieutenant. He's the one who told me to come out here and talk to him. So.
And basically, I finally got a hold of the officer that was there. He's inviting me to come down there. He's like, oh, you're Derek Sneed? Oh, and then he starts trashing me to my tenant, bad-mouthing me, saying that he knows who I am, that I probably don't own the property, that I'm just going to take his money and kick him off the property, that
This is Aaron?
This is Aaron, the deputy.
What's his full name?
Aaron Swears.
Aaron Swears.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
Okay. Oh, it's Derek Sneed? Oh, he has a warrant right now for his arrest. Hello? This is Deputy Swears with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. 1140. I'm waiting for you to get out here so I can arrest you on your warrant. You have a warrant out for your arrest. I don't know. I just know you have a warrant out for your arrest. Did you take care of it already? Well, it depends if you want to come out here and you want to deal with your warrant or you want to deal with the will.
There is no warrant, and if you want to keep lying, I'll just call back and get your
Derek Sneed was born on March 11, 1971.
Nobody has permission to take shit off my property.
Let's see. You have a felony warrant for larceny, commit grand theft, fraud in person, obtain property, and extort and threats for a total of $50,000 bond. So if you want to come to turn yourself in, awesome. If not,
Turn myself in for what?
for the warrant you have arrest.
Who put that out? And when was it put out?
It was put out February 8th, 2022 by the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. I don't know. I don't have that. Well, they own the well, and you didn't pay for it.
They don't own the well, and it's attached to my property, and they don't have permission to take it.
Okay. Well, if you want to, no, but I have the invoice showing where you didn't pay for it. Yeah, it's right here. I just looked at it. If you want to come out here and talk to me in person, awesome. We'll go to Columbia County Jail and we'll sit down and talk about it. If not, have a good day. Just so you know, he's gonna rip you everything. Derek probably don't even own this. He just scams everybody out of money and stuff like that. and leaves you up to dry. That's part of the reason he has a warrant out for his arrest.
Really?
Yeah. So.
$20,000 I put on this place, you telling me might be gone?
Yeah, he probably don't even own this. So.
That's not good, man.
He finds listings online, copies the pictures over to like Facebook Marketplace, different stuff like that, and puts it up for rent.
Yeah, I didn't rent this place, I bought it, so that's why that's concerning.
You might want to look into it. Let me call Scooter. Hey, are you familiar with Derek Sneed? He's the dude that like puts all these properties up for rent and stuff, and then he doesn't even like own them. He rents, like, basically scams everybody out of all this money and stuff like that.
All I know is he owns, I guess he owns his property.
Yeah.
He has some renters on it.
Well, so supposedly this guy just bought it from Derek, and so I'm sure there's some kind of fraudulent whatever. So he called Derek. Derek called dispatch. Dispatch just called me. Derek wants me off his property. He says you can't take, the water because they're living here, blah, blah, blah. Well, Derek has a felony warrant with a $50,000 bond for extorting people, grand theft.
Hold on. Derek, is he the homeowner?
No, he's
the renter.
he's the homeowner. Yeah.
The actual landowner.
Yes. Supposedly, but if you look into it, I guarantee he doesn't even own this. It's probably fraudulent.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So I told him if he wants to come out here and talk to me in person, he's more than welcome to, and then we can go to the Columbia County CJ and talk about it. But just FYI, he's probably going to call and complain. He's one of them like sovereign citizens, and
okay. That's
so.
fine. Just tell him to call me.
Okay.
If he wants to complain, make a complaint to me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
At that point, I'm hearing bits and pieces of this because he's talking to me on the phone, and then I can hear my tenant off to the side because they're having that conversation there. And I had no inkling that there was a bribe paid. I had to get, my first priority was to get a well for my tenant in there because he needed water, and remarkably, I found somebody to do it the very next day. Most of the guys were 6 weeks out to do something like that.
Right.
But I found somebody. I paid him in cash. I got a receipt. I was there. I thanked him.
Even without a receipt, you would think that that situation would be a civil matter and not something that the police would get involved in. They shouldn't come out and take it. They should just sue you in civil court, small claims court, if you owe them money for the job. They shouldn't be able to come out and rip something out of the ground like that.
That's exactly true. And in the course of what happened next, because he badmouthed me so bad, I wanted, I wanted to hear the parts that I didn't hear on the phone. I want to see what else he said. And I requested the body camera footage. And then I was told I can't have it because there's an investigation going on. I'm thinking to myself, what investigation? And they wouldn't give me anything. Finally, about, I'd say, well, actually, I take that back. They did give me something. They gave me one of those pages that you check off as to why they won't give it to you. So that I got back in an email and basically was told it was under investigation. So about 3 weeks later, I was following up on it and was able to get the video at that point. And a whole series of events just really fell into place for me to find this, because I'm not one to watch the credits in a movie. And I watched diligently from the beginning to end on this video, or there's two of them, one from his car and one from him. And I never would have thought, like in the last 30 seconds, that there was a bribe and that money's changing hands, and it's plain as day.
Appreciate you. I can't take that, man. You're good. No. I appreciate you. Appreciate you. I can't take that, man. You're good. No. I appreciate you. Appreciate you. I can't take that, man. You're good. No. I appreciate you.
And then that turned into requesting more public records about, you know, what did they do about this, and how long was it under investigation, and what did the investigation find. They finally gave me all of that, and at the time that I got that, it was all said and done and over with. There was nobody called me to get my, you know, insight. They actually sent an investigator out to talk to my tenant and ask him to say that he allowed them to do it, which that wasn't true, but that's what they asked him to do. So I read the IA report. Howard got a 10-day suspension. And I thought that was weird that he got more of a suspension than the guy actually out there, you know, bad-mouthing me and watching him take the well. But Aaron, he got a 2-day suspension. All done and over with. Paid little vacation. And it was just dumbfounding to see that they covered it up and called it a gift. They said it was a gift because an officer 5 years prior, when the owner of the well company had a dispute with his wife, stood by and watched and kept the peace. Aaron wasn't working at that time, so it wasn't Aaron. No clue who it was, but that was the reasoning on giving the $100. They called it a gift. And
What $100?
so the bribe at the end,
Okay.
when the well company they're done, they've ripped the well out of the ground, they're ready to get out of there, they shake hands with, you know, the sheriff's deputy, Aaron.
Right, the money.
Thanks for coming out. $100 bill. And it's just plain as day, like it's normal course of business. And you could tell, you know, that's really what it was. I mean, it was the proverbial handshake with the $100 bill right there.
Right.
You almost, you know, most people wouldn't have really seen that. They almost would have missed it. But, you know, I got all of the video for that. I got the internal affairs reports over all of that.
Now, you said a gift. Did they try to play it off as a gift?
Absolutely.
In the internal affairs report?
100%.
Wow.
They even gave that $100 back to the owner of the company.
They say they did.
They did. But
They did?
yeah, they did. But, you know, it was all inventoried. You know, pictures of the $100 bill. You know, things that stand out in the internal affairs report was, you know, some of the higher ups saw the video. You know, they suspended Aaron. They actually, I think they gave him a ride home. And he had, I think it was 2 or 3 days to collect his thoughts before internal affairs investigated him. Now, the people from the well company, the person that you see in the video giving the $100 bill, his name is Derek, just like mine. It's written on the side of the truck. And Derek Espenship, his mother works at the well company. And so his mother's husband is Howard Biltius, who works at the sheriff's department. That's how the police got involved, that one of the two of them, or the owner of the company, reached out to the sheriff's department, knowing that there was some familiar relationship there with, you know, husband and wife. It says in the internal affairs that Howard, he went to the state attorney, He went to the courthouse, was told replevin was the way to do it. If nobody gave him a problem, to go ahead and do it, if nobody objected or anything like that. And that's how it started with getting the well company out there, you know. And they did not have to follow 1 ounce of civil law, much less, if it were you and I, criminal law, by taking and giving the bribe. Both of those guys should have been arrested for what happened there. And at the end of the day, fast forward about a year later, where I'm still dealing with this in my civil case, guess who doesn't work at the well company anymore but has his mother working there? Derek Espenship. He doesn't work there anymore. And, you know, they said it didn't have anything to do with that incident, you know, and anybody in the back of their mind is going to say, oh yeah, I'm sure they cut that liability out right there. But that in itself is, you know, the high level of that bribe video. And I would dare say that if anybody's ever gotten to see a bribe video in a movie or in person off a body camera or something like that, classic.
Yeah.
It's just classic. And then the cover-up behind it, you know, to not give the records. I mean, they should have called me, you know, since it was my property. Did none of that.
And we're going to show everybody out there, guys, we're going to show you the footage that we're talking about here of the bribe. And I believe you got the documents, the internal affairs documents and stuff.
Every bit of it, I've got all of that.
So we're going to show that on screen here for you folks. And I'll create some kind of a download link or Google link to get it to folks that want to read it in its entirety. And so where we're at now, Derek, you said, is that we are, or you are in the middle of a civil lawsuit. It's about this issue here.
This issue is part of it.
Okay.
You know, other things that have happened that I've been arrested for. I think I've been arrested maybe 6 or 7 times in Columbia County.
Wow. And you lived there since when?
2018.
Wow. So almost an arrest or two a year, almost.
And that's not including reports that were sent to the state attorney that didn't file charges, but they tried to file charges. And some of the incidents are just as, for the average person, I just got chills thinking about what I'm going to tell you next. Is I went over to one of my properties. I'm evicting a person, and my lawyer told me, go see if they're still there, because we've got a hearing tomorrow. I'm going to tell the judge, you know, so I did a drive-by, had my camera out. I did not say a word, had the camera out, and I saw 4 people there, and they said, there he goes, that mother effer, and they were also talking to a DCF agent that was there. I had recognized the car from a different property where she was investigating the tenants for what they were doing to their kids. So they started in their vehicle chasing me. I'm in a pickup truck with a trailer on the back and my lawnmower. And the dirt roads, you know, it's a little bit out of the way. For 7 minutes, I'm trying to get away from the guy, and I'm not going to make it. You know, I've got that trailer on the back. But you can hear the gas pedal to the floor, you know, it's downshifting, trying to get away. I get back out on the main road, and there goes the Columbia County Sheriff's officer. I pulled into the gas station to make sure that, you know, I didn't pull right over. I waited to pull into a place that I knew had video cameras in case there was a problem. Well, there was a problem. That guy called the sheriff's department and said that I was enticing and trying to pick up little kids. So at that point, and I hear this after all these cops show up, whole parking lot's filled with Lake City police officers and Columbia County Sheriff's deputies, because it's like right on the line of,
Lake City.
it's right on the line of Lake City. And the guy that pulls me over, I knew who he was, or he knew who I was. He had a chip on his shoulder about me. And, you know, when I pulled over, I had called my girlfriend to have it on speakerphone. And he said, well, I hear you're trying to pick up little kids. And my girlfriend said some choice words just in the background to, you know, to me. But, you know, he basically gets me out of the vehicle and says if I don't get out, he's going to take me out. So I left the phone running.
What was his name?
His name was Tim Parisi. And just as a side note, if you look him up, he died last year. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm trying to get a copy of his autopsy. It's not something that they have here, but it's in Duval. But you could kind of tell the type of person that he was, with huge arms that didn't match the body size and the tattoos. But you know, anyway, he gets me out. He knows who I am. All of these other officers are there, and the guy that called the cops and says I was trying to pick up little kids, he's standing there. I'm like, he needs to be arrested for filing a false police report. And at the end of what was done was Parisi tried to look up the VIN number of my vehicle, said he couldn't find it anywhere, to 2019 Chevy Colorado. I must have the only vehicle in the world that you can't look up, that, you know, has never been registered anywhere, no certificate of origin or anything. Even though I had the paperwork in the car. I had bought it from the auction, was able to prove all of that. He didn't want to hear any of it. He said I didn't have a license plate on the vehicle. It was taped into the back window because it was a temporary tag. And I ended up getting arrested for attaching a tag and I forget what the other one was because there's been a few arrests, but basically I was arrested on 2 charges, and both of those charges could have just been a citation or a desk ticket to appear in court to deal with it, rather than
an actual arrest.
Actual arrest, taking my stuff, because they towed the truck and the trailer, and all of those deputies that were there, you know, I was almost begging some of the deputies, because Parisi was a Lake City police officer, so I was begging some of the other deputies, just go watch the video, because it was on my phone. Go watch the video. I didn't say anything, I didn't gesture, I didn't do anything, and they wouldn't do it. And at that point, I'm in cuffs, and they're talking to the guy like it's a normal day, no big deal. Even though the whole parking lot is literally filled at the gas station with almost a dozen police officers and sheriff's deputies, and Parisi ended up being the one to take me to jail. The very next day, well, that night I got out of jail on bond, but the very next day, I took the same paperwork that he was given to the towing company, showed it to them. They called an officer to sign off on it. They came out. Go about your business. Let me leave and pay like $600. So that just, you know,
only $600.
Yeah, not to mention the bond money I had to pay to get out of jail. But
are those charges still active, or were they dropped? Or?
They're completely dropped. They never went anywhere.
Of the arrests that you've had in Columbia County, have you ever been convicted on any of them?
I've been convicted of one thing, and I'll explain that right now, because a lot of people, I hope a lot of people can relate to why I took this plea offer. Stu Lilker, he runs the Columbia County Observer. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but he's kind of like a independent local guy, very, very well versed in what I would say some of the politics, the county meetings, the city meetings, the code enforcement meetings, and he writes about them on his website, and I've gotten to know him. And basically, he was going to write a story about one of my properties where the deputies wouldn't go in, and told me I couldn't go into my property when it was so nasty you could cut the air and catch a fly, because it was just that nasty. The kids that were outside were dirty and filthy. Everybody was yelling and screaming. The two deputies that were there basically told me I'm not allowed to go on my rental property. And, you know, I got upset. I yelled a general profanity outwards to the neighbors that were watching all of this. And the guy that was with me, his name's Dylan, I said, Dylan, we're out of here. They don't want to do anything, let's go. So as we get ready to go, cop's still being an ass, standing in front of the truck, not moving. I did ask him if his body camera was on because I didn't see the red light. I found out later it was on, which I'm glad that it was, but I recorded everything that happened that day, and I had to tell this deputy more than once because there was only one way out. We couldn't back up into the other person's yard. There's only one way out, and he wouldn't get out of the way. We had to tell him a couple times to get the F out of the way. And from there, I showed and I told Stu, here are the pictures. You know, Stu's the type of guy, he's not going to write a story unless he's vetted it. Even if it was from his mother, he would vet it. So I'm glad he does. Mm-hmm. But he was going to write a story about that. I sent him the pictures, the deputies, the people that were there. I mean, the people that were there, DCF came out afterwards, but it was taking forever to get DCF out there. But the kids, the way that I explained it, and I'm not sure if it was on video or not, but the way that I explained it was when kids eat those fudge sickles and you get the brown ice cream all over your mouth, mm-hmm. That was dirt for those kids. They were that bad, and mm-hmm. It didn't take a rocket scientist to see that. So Stu's getting ready to write an article about that, and he's got my side. So he contacts the sheriff. Well, Sheriff Hunter basically asks Stu sternly to not run that story. And he also said that there was not a police report about that incident to Stu as well. Well, lo and behold, the article comes out the next day. And it's damning to those deputies that wouldn't do their job. And it clearly shows, of just a few pictures that Stu posted, how nasty the place was. And from that point on, I had given those tenants a 7-day notice to get out of the property. I don't want you to bother fixing anything, I just want you to leave. And 7 days was up, and they came out, the same two officers came out again after the story was written and arrested Dylan, because he was there cleaning out the property. The 7 days was up. They left a message on my phone, "We out." That's all they said, but I have the record of that the night before. And I tell Dylan, go over there and clean the place out. There is nothing of value in there for anybody. He was taking out the mattresses, so he backed his truck up to the front door so he wasn't dragging anything across the ground to make it worse. And the cops showed up, and they arrested Dylan, put him in the back of the car, and I was actually on my way over there with locks from Home Depot when I got the call. And basically, the same deputies taunted me about, they want me to come down there and help my little buddy, I believe is their exact words, and told him that he was going to jail and for theft and two other things. I forget what the other two other items were, but they were two other misdemeanors. And they took him to jail at that point. They hadn't arrested me yet, and I didn't know that they had planned to. But when Dylan went to jail, I had to call his father and say, Dylan's safe. I'm sorry, but he got arrested on my watch. I said, I'm going to take care of everything. I got the bonds person. I paid them. after it was all said and done, I paid Dylan for every hour that he was detained. So from the time that they took him to the time he eventually got out of jail, I paid him for all of that. I profusely apologized, many times to his father about that, and then they finally arrested me, and they arrested me for that property, even though I wasn't there doing it. I told somebody to do it, so they arrested me for that. That cost me about. It was supposed to be about $50,000 bond, but the judge, she jacked my bond up to well over $500,000. And then the next time, at a different property, after I got out of jail, I had a different person go over to try to remediate the electricity because the electrical panel on the outside was arcing, and you could see the black, and the arcing going on. Well, I was out of town, so I told him to take care of it, and I basically said, take all the breakers out. You can even cut the wire going to the breaker. You don't have to be nice about unscrewing it because we're not going to be using those breakers again. Anyway, he got arrested for doing that, and I eventually got arrested for doing that, for telling him to do that, I should say, at my own property.
Yeah, these are both your own properties.
These are both properties that I own. Yeah.
Wow.
And the police have, on this second incident, the police were out earlier in the year. The deputy that came out earlier in the year was called out by the tenant trying to get me in trouble. The deputy that came out tried to put 4 charges on me, including felonies, and at the bottom of her narrative, it says she contacted multiple civil attorneys to see how to handle what was going on, and they all told her it was a civil matter. So in February, she dropped it, closed it. But these 2 officers that Stu wrote the article about and that I was having a current issue with reopened it. I ended up with 11 charges on me, and most of them were felonies. One of them was a felony aggravated assault, saying that I slapped and cracked the girl's phone out of her hand, the tenant's daughter. Well, I went there with camera going. I even had paid security because we went to 2 properties that day to do home inspections. And I'm so glad that I had the camera, not just the security guard, but he and the video clearly shows I didn't touch her. I refused to take her phone when she said her mother was on the phone. And we're talking about a 22-year-old, not a teenager or anything like that.
Right.
Walked through the house, made some comments about how nasty it was, walked around the house, and we left. Well, those deputies reopened the case and put a lot more charges on me, on top of the ones that they had just done at the other property with Dylan. So I'm already out on bond for a $500,000 bond. And I am shaking, I'm again nervous talking about it, that this judge was going to revoke my bond. And at least she didn't revoke my bond, because this is something that happened before the other charges that I was in front of her for. But $700,000 was what my bond ended up being. I just got done with $500,000. Now I've got over $700,000. And Cody was arrested. I didn't really know Cody, his family, or anything like that. He just happened to be a friend of a friend that could take care of, remediation while I was out of town. And I got hit with use of a 2-way communication device to facilitate a felony, dealing in stolen property, several levels of assault. But the one really that stood out, the cops are the ones that said in the police report, I slapped her phone out of her hand and it shattered. That's the same phone. She was still on the phone with her mother. No pictures, no nothing. That was a life felony. you know, for that one specific charge. There was another charge there that was 25 years to life. I mean, these were some serious felony charges, and on that day that Cody was over there doing the electrical for me, I wasn't even in town. And they arrested Cody for four charges. Again, with the two-way communicator, dealing in stolen property, assault, I forget what the other one was. But and I had a lawyer, so my lawyer was giving the state attorney all of this mitigation, videos of the whole time that I was, you know, at the property, nothing happened. Videos of, you know, Dylan doing the work that he was asked to do when the people had moved out, and showing them the article that Stu had written about that property. But with Cody and Dylan, none of that mitigation that we gave to the state attorney made it down to Dylan or Cody, who had public defenders. And all that mitigation, the crux of that mitigation was, I told him to do it. I did not roll over and say, well, you know, Dylan did this on his own, Cody did it on his own. I admitted to everything. I asked Cody to go do that. I asked Dylan to go.
Were their charges dropped, or did they?
Those charges on Dylan were eventually dropped several months later. He's got a record now. You know, and then obviously he had to walk on eggshells during the time that, you know, he was out on bond. I think they pulled him over for squealing his tires one day, which was actually a misdemeanor, and thank goodness, you know, he didn't go back to jail for that. So his public defender never got any of my mitigation. It took them, I'd say, 4 months, and then they just dropped it. Cody, they thought they got the jackpot on me, like I'm the biggest criminal in the world. They took Cody and did an interview with him. They never told him it was my property. Cody is still in prison now. He's in prison for 18 months. He gets out in October, and I may never hear from him, you know, to apologize to him. I don't know him that well, but you know, if he came by, I would be like, look, I gave the cops everything that they needed to know that this was my property, that I asked you to do it. Here are the text messages, the whole 9 yards. They never told him any of that. They had him in this little room. These two officers, again, that the article was written about, had him in this room. Basically was like asking questions about me and if he knew me, and you know, acting like they were his friend, and you know, they were going to go get a beer later. And lo and behold, they dumped him with 4 charges, you know, related to me. And before his public defender got any information, he's already shipped off to jail. He never, to this day, his public defender never got any of the mitigation, because Cody made a deal with the cops to testify against me, to give a proffer against me, which I would have welcomed, you know, having known, if he had known the truth, but shipped him off to jail, 18 months right away. Cody had no clue what he was doing in there. He thought, again, that they were being friendly with him and that he was going to go home. I haven't spoken to him since, but that is what these cops are about. He got an $80,000 bond. Dylan got a $30,000 bond. Dylan would have never been able to pay that, or his father would have never been able to pay that. That was my responsibility, because I told his father, he's like kind of like my son, my brother, whatever you want to call it. He's always around, and you know, I think highly of him, and you know, it's just, that's what they did. And this is part of why I have the lawsuit, you know, the civil rights lawsuit. And that's just for instance of a high level of some of the very high level and very expensive things that they've done to me. They've arrested me on other things as well, and the charges get dropped. Now, you had asked about how have I taken a plea. In this last round of arrests, I'm out on $1.32 million bond. I'm with all these felonies, and I've got a lawyer, and he works out a plea arrangement for me to plead guilty to a criminal mischief charge, $200 or less, so that they can have the pound of flesh, and they drop all those other felonies.
Say no more.
It also takes away your chance to sue.
Right.
Heck v. Humphrey.
Exactly. It sure did that. So part of what my lawsuit should have been, all of this, you're absolutely right, got cut off because I took that plea deal. But I'm not the type of person, and I don't know anybody that wants to sit in jail or possibly face life in jail.
Right.
And I'm not happy that I took that plea deal.
But you did what everybody would have done.
Right.
What everybody would have done, right? And they know that, and that's how they get you. You know what I mean? Because they're like, no one is going to look at 20 years in jail and say, oh, should I do 20 years in jail possibly, or should I pay $200?
Right.
You know, I mean, it's a no-brainer. And they do that because, like you said, now you can't sue them for those instances. They know they're wrong, but you know what? We'll throw a whole bunch of charges on them. We'll get them to plea down to something else, and this is all going to go away. And that's pretty much what happened with that incident. Am I right?
That's exactly what happened. Yeah. Basically paid the court cost. You know, I had, and that was it. I mean, I got a misdemeanor on my record. I didn't have, there was no way in early negotiations I was taking probation, because I know that they would try to violate me, or, you know, with probation.
Right.
And
you do all but 1 month, and then they send you back to jail.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
So, you know, so that, just even that part, I mean, that's not, you know, in my current civil rights lawsuit, but it's cumulative of a lot of the stuff that they've done to me, and that's really been the most egregious, because it rolls over into not just the police, but a top-down scenario where the state attorney was bad. We know he got arrested. He was taking bribes. He even gave a proffer. In that proffer, he talks about judges trading, other judges, you know, taking bribes, or not state attorneys, but other lawyers doing cocaine, county commissioners doing cocaine, and naming them in that proffer. But basically he was naming judges, police officers, and lawyers.
Where can we see this proffer at?
I sent you a copy.
Right on.
You sent me
You'll have a copy. You have it.
We'll post it. We'll have a copy.
This proffer is from the FBI. So it's not like he just gave a proffer to, you know, one individual. It's a, you know, it's a full level proffer, and anybody that wants to question him giving that should know that if he lied in that proffer, his deal that he made would be thrown out the window. So
it's going to be
accurate. Yeah, it's going to be straight on. And one of those people that was named in the proffer is a county commissioner, and Sylvester at the time was asking, or challenging, I should say, all the county commissioners to take a drug test. I guess something had come up. And when I went up to speak, I asked that specific county commissioner, Robbie Hollingsworth, about taking a drug test. I said, it's in the proffer that you were doing cocaine at the time with these people. Are you going to take a drug test? And he's adamant that he's not, that he doesn't do drugs. And I got kicked out that day too for that kind of argument back and forth. But, you know, it's, when you have a proffer just from one person, and that was the state attorney for, I think, 7 counties there.
That guy does cocaine. I've been looking everybody up since Ariel Peterson to Stu Lil and Lilker. I mean,
yeah.
He's suing Suwannee County for records and stuff. Allegedly.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
allegedly.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I had known an ounce of the corruption that has been going on, not just that I experienced myself, but that has been going on, I would have never moved to Columbia County. I wish I could get out of Columbia County. I can't right now. You know, and one of the things that really was awful for me was one of these instances, a Detective Mangrum from the Lake City Police Department, who I had posted, had of his personnel file, he had defamed Sylvester Warren as well. I decided to pull his personnel file and try to figure out what this guy, like, why is he such an ass? A couple of things that stood out to me in his personnel file. There's some check boxes. Have you ever done drugs, used drugs, or sold drugs? Yes, yes, and yes. Are you effing kidding me? Who would hire? Why did they hire him?
Well, they're not looking for the brightest people, really, to be honest.
Well,
you know?
a couple months later, he put a $50,000 warrant out on me for trying to sell my property in Suwannee County. Not even in Columbia. Suwannee County. $50,000.
And what would the charge on that be?
Impersonation. I never got who I was actually impersonating. 3 different charges: fraud, swindle, impersonation. $50,000. That's when Aaron swears, when he was with the well company, was saying I had a warrant out.
Aaron's last name, please.
Swears. SWEA.
That's the only one I couldn't find.
RS.
Okay.
That's when I found out I had a warrant out. And what it was for, I was dumbfounded. And I would say a week or 2 later, cops show up at my house. You know, my place is gated. I got a bunch of dogs. I was morning routine going outside, and I saw an officer coming up my steps, not way down at my gate, coming up my steps. I turn around and go inside, lock the doors, call my lawyer, you know, trying to get him. 911, there's a problem. These cops are yelling from the front door, from the back door, and I'm in the bathroom trying to get one of my dogs put away while I've got my lawyer on speakerphone. They kicked the door in. They kicked it in, came into my bedroom. Taser was, you know, weapon out or whatever. And that's not the first time that, you know, an officer or deputies pulled a gun or a taser on me. And I never had any of those use of force reports. They don't exist. But anyway, $50,000 bond for that. I go to jail. I'm in there. I post my $50,000 bond, but I get stuck to the next night. So the first day I'm in jail on a $50,000 bond, I go in front of the judge. I believe her name is Sarah Carter. She is evil. She jacked my bond from $50,000 to $500,000, along with the state attorney. Jacked my bond like that and raised it to such a level that would keep a lot of people in jail.
And that's separate from the first bond of $500,000 you told us
The
about.
$500,000 was after.
Okay.
I went back a step to talk about some of what was in the proffer and who was in the proffer.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I jumped around on that.
No, that's fine.
But she jacked my bond and to $500,000, and she said that I was a flight risk. And I asked, I was panicking. I asked, give me an ankle monitor or something. $500,000, be on your way. And while I go back and make arrangements, deputy comes and gets me and gives me another, basically, arrest. Arrest for disobeying a police officer. Because the police officer that came to my back step, when they went to serve the warrant, I said, oh shit, wouldn't come to her and went in the house when I didn't say anything to her, and she didn't tell me to come to her or anything like that. When I watched the video later, she was saying hi in a high-pitched voice. Well, that meant I thought I was getting out that morning. Now I've got to go in front of the same judge again. It was a $1,000 bond. Jacked it to $10,000. And I had no record at that point when she was doing all of this. So some of the other people that were in there that have had records or run-ins with the law in the past, they were getting bonds less than me, and they've had issues, whereas I didn't have those types of issues, and she was jacking my bond up like that. But that was Sarah Carter. She also jacked my bond up, the other two bonds that was 1.32.
And she was in the proffer?
She's not named in the proffer, but this is how commingled, I guess is the best word I can describe. Her previous law firm was with, it was like Carter Douglas, and when she became a judge, she had to give that up and give up the name and remove herself as a partner. So I had employed Douglas and Douglas at one point, and this was before I had seen the proffer. When you see the proffer, you then see Vernon Douglas in there, and then it all makes sense. Vernon Douglas, he's got, that's kind of like the 6 degrees of separation between him and some of these other judges. And at that point, I knew nothing good is ever going to come of me being in front of Sarah Carter. And she's done this to a few other people that I've heard, but power. She's got the power to sit right there, and if you decide to I think it was a big ask on my part, I was nervous asking for an ankle monitor because she controls your fate right then and there. And when she jacked it to $500,000, I didn't know what I was going to do. And about a year after that is when I got the additional charges that were jacked up to $1.32 million. And inside of 2 weeks, we're not talking, a year from the earlier one, but they basically were stacking the charges, like throwing the spaghetti at the wall to see what they could get stuck. And what stuck was I had to plead guilty to something that I didn't do. And that resolved my case of all of those other felonies and having to pay for going towards trial and things like that, my bank was already broke at that point, and anybody in their right mind would, take a small misdemeanor to have that done and over with. And
absolutely. I know a lot of people that are activists all over the country, and I don't think any one of us would have told you any different.